IVM.
Hey everybody, quick request once again, if you could help us out by filling out our survey. It's at ivmpodcast.com/survey. This really helps us talk to advertisers about the kinds of people listening to these shows. Really do appreciate your help, and we're going to be doing a random drawing, and we'll be sending out some IVM swag. Hope you enjoy that.
We all love toys. It doesn't matter if we're toddlers or supposed grown-ups. The one thing that brings a unanimous sense of joy to all of us are toys. Be it by bringing families together over a board game or igniting one's imagination with action figures, the collective effect on humanity of toys is often underappreciated. And the advent of digital hasn't slowed its place in our world and has in actuality enabled this industry to evolve in multiple new ways, enabling us as consumers to engage and connect with every franchise of toys in unique and interesting ways. So I'm super kicked to have Bhavesh Somaya, the country manager of Hasbro Southeast Asia, India and the Middle East on the show this week to not just discuss the evolution of the role toys have played in our lives, but also look at how the industry itself has evolved and what the future holds. I'm Varun. We're right back with Advertising is Dead.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. If you aren't following us on social media, it's 2021 now. It's time you did. You didn't in 2020. That was bad enough. But now in 2021, you really should. It's IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And a quick reminder to everybody, just please help us out with our survey, ivmpodcast.com/survey. We've had a number of you fill it out so far, but we want to shatter last year's number, right? Really blow that up. Go fill out the survey over there. If you do, we'll select from the emails that we have got submitted, and we'll be sending out some interesting swag to people. So, what should you be listening to this week? First thing I want to talk about is the unprecedented episode. We did a triple crossover. Vineet Kanabar from Storytellers and Storysellers, Varun Dugirala from Advertising is Dead, and Karthik Nagarajan from the Filter Coffee Podcast all got together and put together a mega episode. Do check it out on whichever of their feeds you want. It's available on all three. On Naan Curry, the guy spoke about the history of alcohol in India. It's got a longer history than people would think. Definitely do check it out. Another show I want to call out this week a little bit is The Note by Maruk Inayat. Maruk had two fantastic episodes this week. She did her first episode with Amitabh Mattu about the elections in Kashmir, and then she did another one where she told the story of how she faked her identity to interview Benazir Bhutto. Definitely do check it out. And with that, let me get you back to your show.
Welcome back to Advertising is Dead with Bhavesh. Bhavesh, I have been really excited to do this episode because toys are the best thing in the world, and you get to work around toys all the time. How is that?
So firstly, Varun, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to kind of come on board and talk about seems our mutually favorite topic of discussion, which is toys. It's actually been a really exciting journey for me personally over the last 4 years as I've joined Hasbro and really built the Hasbro operations in India from scratch. As you're aware, Hasbro is the world's largest play and entertainment company. Yeah. And some of our iconic brands include Nerf, My Little Pony, Transformers, Play-Doh, Monopoly. And I know Monopoly is a household name in India. Yeah. So it's genuinely a fantastic learning experience and an enjoyable time that I've had. I think what's really amazing about the toy industry and specifically in Hasbro is that every year, about 50 to 60% of our products completely change, right? And that's completely driven by the latest, trends of what people love to do and how they love to entertain themselves, what kids seek in new toys, what is the latest content and the entertainment, sort of out there in terms of live action or, episodic content that people are watching, which toys are kind of inspired or made of, or any new play patterns that seem to emerge, which again make the entire journey of innovating around toys really exciting for us.
I find what you said interesting, right? Because when I think about toys as a space, one would assume that in a world which has predominantly moved towards digital, there would be a lot of effects to it in the physical part kind of going down. But from what I'm hearing from you and from what little I kind of read up before we started doing this, it's almost been that the physical part is as strong, if maybe not, maybe even stronger. But what's been great is that you've been able to build so many different ecosystems around it to kind of work together.
Absolutely, Varun. And to tell you the truth, I think I don't see these worlds as almost, separate or, divorced from each other. They almost coexist. And in certain areas, I think they are kind of coming together. Because to tell you the truth, I think, let's look at the current situation, right? I think the whole crisis that we are in right now, I know has made it so difficult for us to get out. But I do know that now more than ever, families are kind of coming together and enjoying the time that they have with each other. And that's why, Hasbro launched this brilliant campaign called Bring Home the Fun some time ago, which was a global initiative to provide parents with activities that foster quality time, family connections during extended time at home.
Yeah.
And by the way, I know we've been hooked on to kind of too much amount of digital exposure in this period. But that does also help us break away from that and kind of spend time with each other and having real fun.
Yeah.
At the same time, to cover the other aspect that I just mentioned, there is a brilliant interconnectivity with digital, because honestly, Hasbro is a digital first organization in the way we manage our brands and our business.
Yeah.
Right from product development to marketing to e-commerce, we are really well positioned to reach audiences where they are and kind of what they are going to do in the future. So a lot of our new toys or our new innovations brilliantly sort of servicing that the kind of joint aspect of a fantastic physical play experience, as well as delivering on the technology piece by for examples like the Monopoly Super Electronic Banking, where you can actually completely change your experience of playing Monopoly and make it paperless. Similarly, there's a brand range that we have called Baby Alive. Yeah. Now, these are interactive dolls for young children and teach them about nurturing, but they have some amazingly advanced digital features which allow sort of, consumers to get a very real life experience of interacting with a doll. So I think it's kind of a brilliant convergence that I think we are most excited by.
If you had to look at the point when you kind of kicked off setting up the Hasbro India operations to now, what have you seen as almost like trends and things that have really kind of taken the space forward? If you had to kind of pick a few and say, what are the what has really changed? I mean, and also what's changed in the way you've actually looked at what you thought consumers would want and what you kind of realized when you saw what people were actually consuming?
Yeah, again, so it's honest. So it's been a really interesting journey, as I said, over the last 4 years. And one of the things that I think is really driving strong growth in the industry is the increasing domestic demand for toys in India, right? Which is also being catalyzed by the country's strong economic growth and rising disposable incomes. So as a consequence of that, what we definitely see is that almost year over year, there's a large variety of toys currently available in the market.
Yeah.
And the diverse product category ranges from traditional plush toys to construction to dolls, board games, puzzles, to high-end electronic toys, educational, STEM-based, games, ride-ons. And honestly, the list kind of goes on and on. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure some of our favorites like, action figures and real detailed sort of, high-end collector toys also are becoming a big thing. Yeah. What's really amazing, Varun, is also how the whole fan business has evolved in India. I mean, there are not just kids who are buying toys. There's a whole new consumer segment on the rise called kidults. Yeah. Adults who kind of, want to relive their memories as kids, and buy into brilliant collector items that is also becoming a big opportunity. So I think
I will count myself amongst them.
That's great to know. I know from the Funko Pop collection that you kind of showed me, that's something that's really interesting.
Action figures everywhere else. And it's interesting you mentioned this as well, right? So recently had my mom visiting, and one of the things she kind of got back for me was my G.I. Joe sets from when I was a kid, which I stored well.
Wow.
And she kind of brought them, and I was 3-year-old and gave them to her. My first instinctive reaction was, okay, I'm going to give it to her. Won't she spoil them? Right. So the mindset does not change about how we kind of hold on to our toys. So I totally agree. The adults part has actually been, I feel that we're finally open to saying that you can be an adult and own toys, but I feel at some point of time you couldn't necessarily do that.
I agree with you, and to tell you the truth, I think G.I. Joe, when you mentioned it, Varun, has such a rich history in India. It's probably one of the most well-known toys in the country, right behind Monopoly.
Yeah.
And I know, I used to play with action figures from G.I. Joe when I was a kid. So totally hooked onto that and completely understand the sentiment with which you're sharing that.
How do you look at the fact that a lot of these are also international franchises, right? When you're kind of coming into India, how have you seen that? Have you seen the fact that there's a need to adapt it for consumers to kind of also latch onto it a little bit more, or have you not? Have you seen that as a trend that's not necessarily there?
I think it's kind of, again, just as I believe this in the country always surprises us, Varun, with the amazing level at which knowledge and sort of, current trends flawlessly go hand in hand with traditional sort of, demands. It's exactly the same for us, as experiencing this journey in Hasbro. So, because of content, because of, live entertainment and the kind of advances that are being made on communication, there's definitely an increasing demand for the latest and the greatest in terms of, absolutely high-end, advanced, digital or technologically advanced toys, electronic toys. And at the same time, there's also fantastic space for, for example, Monopoly. And what I think love about Monopoly is that, the brand is decades old. But what I think is amazing is how it's been, it's on, in fact, it's the 85th year of Monopoly, by the way, this year. And, it's amazing how the brand has evolved over these past 85 years, but it is a timeless classic, right, to be enjoyed by future generations. So, while there's always a demand, a stable demand for those traditional games or toys, we also see an advanced demand for a lot of the latest and amazing high-end items that we service in the global market. So, again, it's just this great balance that I think we are seeing in the way the evolution of demand in toys is happening in India. What's
always excited you about the toy space? Because when I hear you speak about it, I see genuine. How do I put it? It's not something this is something which I can sense you're passionate about as a space, and what kind of attracted you towards it?
So I think what I love, Varun, in this is the industry is extremely dynamic, and it's constantly changing. Given the kind of trends and given the play patterns and what happens in the environment, and I can tell you, for example, 2 years ago, collectibles became a big trend, and Hasbro rode that trend. We had a couple of successful, interesting variants and launches in that, and we leveraged that trend really well. And again, I'm sure there's going to be something else that's going to come up in the next year. Every year, I think there's something interesting that happens. So I love the speed at which I think the industry is able to innovate, and the way it's able to change itself to what's latest and what's new and what needs to be done to kind of, keep remaining relevant to kids. Yeah. And as you said, I think the whole amount of time that kids spend on digital screens and all of that is going up. But look at the fact that it's not as if because of that the industry is dying out. I think the industry is able to innovate itself in real time and still provide solutions that end up engaging kids or now, even adults. And I think I love that about the industry, and that's kind of what brought me into this, into the sector.
Yeah, play and toys for the longest time I feel didn't get their due in the sense of really understanding what role they play in people's personality developing, right? And if I look at, I read this online the other day, someone had tweeted it and I thought it was very interesting. They said that I can judge how a person will be with their own finances about when I look at how they play Monopoly. Mm-hmm. It kind of shows how they deal with their own money because that's how we play the game. It's as deep-rooted as that. Just like psychologically, how we've all kind of grown up with certain toys and how they've shaped us. And I'd love to hear your point, your thought process on that. I mean, when you look at that aspect of saying toys as a space kind of almost grooming people's mindsets rather than just being something that's just for fun.
Yeah, absolutely right. I think even if I refer to certain sort of universal concepts here, I know, there are agencies around the world that recommend, there are psychiatrists, there are educationists that have recommended the importance of playing games with children at home, right? To be able to keep them stimulated, occupied, and ensure that it kind of helps in their overall, sort of development. And I think that's kind of what we term as the value of play, Varun. Mm. And I have to say, this is something that's been a bit of a journey for us in India. Yeah. It's not yet a fully deep-rooted concept. Mm. But I love the fact that the newer generation of parents are definitely taking this to heart. And you do see that transformation occurring where, there's increased demand for, educative board games or STEM toys or toys that are more interactive and can teach a child, to develop, fine motor skills or better hand-eye coordination or start to develop, certain analytical ways in which you need to think through. Yeah. Monopoly is just an amazing example of being able to do that, where you teach financial skills, where you can teach the way you kind of, trade with someone, negotiation skills, and all of those brilliant aspects of one's development. It's a little, I would say, I know that today, if I look at the per capita expenditure per child in India, Varun, in India, it's really low at about $2 to $3 per child, compared to even similarly developing markets or, economies in the world. But I definitely can see that it's increasing at a fast pace. And that gives me a lot of, confidence that this market, more than any other, is poised for a massive development and growth in this sector and in this space.
Has e-com played a large part in that? Because just the way kind of, I'm guessing there would have been changes in how you've looked at consumers, connected to them, make sure they come in for purchase and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. Has kind of the whole e-com space kind of growing as well in India and across kind of helped kind of accelerate a few pieces on that front?
Yeah, I think what's really interesting again, Varun, that just as you would see in a relatively, developing sector or industry, the route to market is still under development, right? I know that there is an expansion that's happening. There are retailers like Hamleys or other, more organized players expanding their networks, which really help because they provide the right needed access for children to quality toys. But I think that's getting accelerated to a large extent because of e-commerce. So we definitely, have experienced that playing a much bigger role in the way growth and development is happening. I know the best platforms today that are servicing consumer needs in the country claim to reach, more than 99% PIN codes. And I'm, that's definitely a fact. And that itself means that, for kids who cannot access, great quality toys, they are able to do that through this platform. And I think that genuinely helps us, again, meet the larger, growing needs of this industry in the country. And it just, helps us fuel growth in or movement in the right direction.
What I also think is interesting with in terms of just the entire space as well is that I think 2020 has done more for people to, you mentioned families wanting play at home, right? I feel that in some ways we've all yearned for something that is not as digital. Mm-hmm. I feel that we've come to value a lot of that as well. I know for a fact that we bought a bunch of board games as soon as some amount of e-com opened up midway through the year, and had tried to find as many physical things for our daughter to play with. And I know a lot of our friends and a lot of people I know have done that. And I'm increasingly seeing people move towards at-home experiences. And as you move at-home experience, it's not just about, just people catching up. I mean, they're all kind of coming back to, I've seen more board games in people's houses in recent years than I've seen in a long, long time. So in a way, I think that's also an interestingly prevailing trend of going back to physical.
Right. Absolutely. And I think you're right. I mean, look, there's also this matter of engaging in person, right? Away from the seemingly omnipresent screens that have come to dominate the lives of people working on computers from home or students attending the school remotely, right? So physical board games do often provide a reprieve from the screen time that we're all increasingly spending more time on right now. And of course, people have the opportunity to marry the past and present by playing those games from their childhood with their kids. And just kind of, working on those connections that I think we have all been losing in this crazy time that we've all been running around, developing and putting in effort to focus on our jobs. So today, more than ever, I think, honestly, Varun, there is a demand for physical play and interpersonal interactions among families. And I think Hasbro Toys and Games are bringing children and their families together while doing all of the stuff that we just talked about, which is learning, creativity, and most importantly, of course, having fun.
And I feel what's also happened is it's seamlessly become a part of it, right? If I think about, and I know I'm giving a lot of personal examples, because I have a kid at home, but I just see how she consumes toys. For her, it's not separated from everything else. So she'll, for instance, watch the Barbie animated series on Netflix, but she'll then play with her Barbie. But in similar way, watch a Frozen themed Lego set if required, or go to her action figures of it. So I think for the present generation of kids growing up, it's that seamless, interplay between, okay, what's on the screen, what's not, and it's become that. And the next frontier in many ways, and because I have dabbled with it, because I find these things fun, is actually the AR versions of those, right? And how we can kind of use those to make the experience even more interesting. So if you had to kind of look at the future and say, okay, these are trends which we're seeing for the toy space and where it's moving towards, what are things that kind of, from your experience and what you, obviously your understanding of the landscape, where do you see the industry moving?
So I think the need to kind of, as I said earlier, Varun, the demand for toys that can seamlessly move between these two spaces is going to increase, definitely, right? Because beyond just the basics, I think children and their families and parents are going to look at more to be fulfilled from toys, right? So what else can I get from these, from these toys? Of course, there's always the fundamental life lessons that you earn, right, from board games, learning to share, accepting failure, working hard at winning, waiting for your turn and all of that. But at the same time, as I think people are also rooting themselves strongly further and further in their families and making connections with them, which I think is, by the way, not something that will suddenly turn the tide and reverse itself as soon as, we have the vaccine and people are free to kind of move out.
Yeah.
So I do feel that, toys that will evoke feelings of nostalgia, comfort, create fond memories, create meaningful interactions and great way to connect with your family, kids, will stay relevant. At the same time, on the other hand, as entertainment and content becomes more and more kind of pervasive, important, and we all are gradually shifting to, or maybe even rapidly shifting to, screens to watch this content rather than, doing it in the traditional manner of going to movie theaters or whatever else.
Yeah.
Toys based out of that that entertainment also, I think, are going to remain relevant, because at the end of the day, you want to be a part of that fantasy world. You want to capture a moment from that, and there is no better way to do it than a live action toy or an action figure or some sort of a doll or whatever else that brings that moment alive, that allows you to relive that moment, right? So it's I think a bit of both of these, as well as I said, toys that can actually provide a fantastic experience from both a digital, technological, as well as a physical world, start to get more and more relevant. So, a couple of these areas is where I think the industry will move into, and again, offers us such an exciting opportunity to continue to innovate in these areas.
So if I was a young person today who's obviously, and I can't think of, there might be very few people who will not be excited by working with toys, and I would just say that I think for most of us, whenever we hear this term, because we all get, I think the child in us kind of comes out. But if I want to kind of build a career, saying what are the opportunities, what are the spaces which I might not realize I could kind of work in this entire industry, which is obviously it's a massive industry. There's so much that is happening there. What would you say the spaces that, if I had to hone my skills to kind of say, okay, I'm kind of honing myself to work in this space, what would those be?
So what's really interesting, Varun, is not just, I think, and because we're specifically talking about India and what are the opportunities that this industry offers for, the younger generation in terms of just futures or careers in this country. I have to kind of, underline and state that recently the Prime Minister made a big announcement about how we want to encourage Make in India for toys and make toys a Atmanirbhar category in the country. So obviously what is going to happen and what is already happening is that a lot of government departments are actively working with the industry to ensure that manufacturing and sourcing in the country is ramped up. And in fact, again on this front, Hasbro is right at the top because we are potentially the biggest exporters of toys in the country. We have a very strong partner base in the country that we've established over the last couple of years that has helped us, start making toys in India and even exporting them out of the country, apart from just, of course, selling them domestically. Karnataka, for example, has already announced a huge 5,000 crore toy cluster that's going to come up in Koppal. Similarly, the Uttar Pradesh government is planning to set up units at the upcoming toy manufacturing hub in Greater Noida. So what I clearly see is that, across all different kinds of fields, which is, manufacturing, design development, quality assurance, engineering, sourcing, and then, of course, given this kind of focus, there is going to be a lot more toy innovation that I believe is going to happen in India. There's going to be a lot of toy creators who are going to be inspired. The government is conducting hackathons or, design workshops. There's going to be plans around upskilling, people to start sort of contributing to this sector massively. So honestly, it's going to be a big focus for investments in the country. And again, I definitely see this something offering a lot of opportunity in different fields, when it comes to working within this industry and contributing to the growth of the industry.
Do you also see a lot more physical spaces where people kind of come in and experience stuff around the toys kind of opening up? And obviously post-COVID at some point, whenever that point is. Have you seen interest in stuff like that as well?
So I think, Varun, there are great examples of this having happened in a lot of our other more mature markets. Mm-hmm. So, there's a whole Nerf experience center that, that we are working with a partner in Singapore on, which has been highly successful. There's a Monopoly hotel, in Malaysia. There's a brilliant sort of Transformers, experience, ride that you can kind of, be a part of as a part of the whole Universal Studios Singapore tour. So there are some very interesting formats, that have come up to kind of, participate in what's called live branded entertainment. Mm-hmm. There definitely are plans to do this in India, but I think maybe over a couple of years in the future rather than now, because I think we need to really focus on kind of building back and ensuring that we are coming back on an even keel and continue to kind of, focus and grow the industry in the basics.
I totally get that, and I agree. In a slight segue, what was your favorite toy growing up? What was your go-to?
G.I. Joe, clearly. I love the storyline. I love the different characters. And I think I obviously love to role play, sitting with my little G.I. Joe set and of course, ensuring that the good guys and the bad guys fight with each other, and of course the good guys win.
You have to tell me which one was your favorite character, because we all have our favorite characters.
Roadblock.
What are you saying?
Yeah,
I was always a split between. I think I was actually more Duke for some reason. There's something about the hat which kind of did it for.
I went for the whole big bulky character. Undefeatable.
Yeah, correct. I hate to use the word childish, but I think there's genuine excitement that comes up when we talk about these characters and these things that feel like almost a part of how we are, and there's so much more that we all look forward to, right? And we look at the franchises and you look at how everything's kind of scaling up and going that way. Are you also looking at stuff that's homegrown as well, like kind of anything India specific in terms of characters, etc.? Is there any plans for stuff like that as well?
So again, this is going back to what I just mentioned on the whole Make in India agenda, what we definitely have been in talks with a variety of government bodies and partners is how is it that we can start to use local insights to inspire development of toys within our portfolio. So we are definitely looking at interesting innovations around board games and a couple of other brands that we can seamlessly integrate, and also kind of add a touch of India to those. So that's definitely in the pipeline, and of course more to come as we develop those. But it's definitely something that I'm personally very excited by.
If I go back to when you started off your career to now, what would you say? There's actually two parts to this question. One is that, is this what you wanted to do when you started off? Was this the plan that I will eventually work in the toy space? I will have the enviable job of knowing as much about these as a lot of us hope we would. And secondly, what have your learnings been over this time? What have you kind of learned, which many people kind of start off their careers, might overthink and might feel like I need to know all these things? And what have your learnings kind of been?
To answer the first question, Varun, no, it was not. I don't think when I started my career, I had any clue on how I would end up in the toy industry. But I was clear on one thing, which is I did want to be a part of organizations, industries that I personally felt excited about. And they kind of, did really sink in well with my own values. And I think Hasbro is just an absolutely perfect fit, on those counts. And that's why I think I really, really enjoy my time and my journey in Hasbro, and of course look forward to many more successful years of being able to pursue this. I think to answer your second question, the only thing that I think I would love to kind of talk about on that front is no experience that you kind of, work through in life is small or it's non-relevant. I think every little change, every little project, every little, job tweak, every little increase in responsibility teaches you that much more. And what you need to do as an attitude is just welcome that change, because honestly, experiences rather than levels and job titles and whatever else have you are going to be the ones that really teach you so much more in life. So, just enjoy the journey, enjoy the experiences that you're going through, and focus on giving your best to each of those. And I think you'll fly. That's all that I can say.
As we come towards the end of every episode, right, I do this segment with all my guests, which traditionally was called the humans of advertising, but over time has just become the humans who come onto the show. We don't have a tentative title for it yet.
Okay.
It's a bunch of random questions, not necessarily about the work, but more about you. It also leads to some very interesting insights about the guests that kind of come out. So, and a lot of these are standard, but I'm going to ask you one of the ones which I found interesting in recent times.
Okay.
What do you spend a lot of time consuming, obsessing over, or just like spending a lot of time doing, which people who know you professionally would be surprised to know that you actually spend so much time doing that X? What would that be?
I think I spend a lot of time thinking through how am I able to create value. And that can be in any aspect of my life, whether it is, at my job, whether it is, what am I doing personally to be able to add value to myself or to people around me. I think that's something that I think or maybe even overthink a lot about, during my time.
Yeah. So what have you done in 2020 to give yourself more value in beyond the work?
I think at least in the current time, Varun, the one of the biggest thing that I'm trying to do more of is remain connected to the team, just to sort of ensure that they're all in a good place. So there's been a lot of town halls and conversations that I think I've been having, and also as my role has expanded recently and I'm taking over a completely new territory by remote. By the way, that's another unbelievable experience that I'm going through right now. Just trying to again make those connections, understand where people are, and try to see if I can help them through any challenges that they're facing.
Yeah,
that's my interpretation right now, at least, of how I'm able to add value or create value.
Have you seen yourself as a leader evolve because of that? Because obviously it's a very different way of working with teams and kind of making sure work happens, but also making sure that people are in the right headspace and etc. So how have you seen yourself evolve as a leader, especially in this form of functioning?
So honestly, Varun, the one aspect that I've been really trying to work hard on is being able to listen and listen even more keenly. And look, I think it's easier when you're in a physical space, when you're looking at people, you are able to communicate quite openly how you're interested and keen and you are tuned into what they are saying. It becomes all the more difficult when we are doing this virtually, especially when you can't sometimes turn on videos or there are certain other challenges. It's really important to be able to communicate to the other person that you are hooked in, you are listening, you really appreciate what's kind of coming to you. And also I think the other aspect is expressing gratitude, just because these are unbelievable times, and I think whatever that we are seeing today people do, they are giving their 200%. And I think it's really important to thank people enough to ensure that they feel recognized and also give them obviously the space to be able to manage all of their personal as well as professional commitments. So it's just those aspects that I think as a leader that I'm getting more and more conscious of and really trying to bring in my kind of day-to-day working.
Is there something that you've read or listened to or just kind of watched which you feel has been something that you would really recommend for people?
Well, I've been reading this book that was, by the way, recommended to me by my boss. It's a book by Marshall Goldsmith called "What Got You Here Won't Get You There."
Nice.
And what I really like about the book is there are a lot of unconscious, annoying habits that leaders end up developing if they see a fantastic level of success in their journeys, and these get internalized. And I think what I love about the book is how you can actually do a bit of introspection, look at where is it that you are on your journey on these habits, and how some very simple tips can help you, overcome them. So this is something that's been, I've been quite captivated by it, and I'm trying to learn a lot from that and try and apply that in my own journey.
I have an interesting add-on to that one. There's a book I've just started reading, which might actually be a nice follow-up to what you're reading. It's a book called Give and Take. It's by Adam Grant. It's about why helping others can drive your own success, and how you spoke about leadership as well as this. I thought this might interest you.
Sure.
It was gifted to me by someone, and I suddenly started reading it. It was very interesting. Just how that this makes so much more sense in today's world than ever before. And going by what you spoke about leadership as well as what you just mentioned, I thought that will be a nice read for me to suggest back to you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for the recommendation. I'll definitely look it up.
And last question for you, why do you think toys will never die?
Why do I think toys won't die?
Yeah, why will toys as something that we will constantly have never die?
As long as we keep the child in us alive, I don't think toys will ever die at whatever age that we are at.
That is so true. Thank you so much for doing this, Bhavesh. This has been a lot of fun. I mean, I feel like I have a bunch of insights here, which I've kind of taken off from this episode. And I hope you enjoyed it as much as I've had fun kind of talking to you about it.
Absolutely, Varun. Thank you so much. And it's been a real pleasure connecting and having a chat with you. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for coming on Advertising is Dead.
Thanks a lot. All the best. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Working Monday to Friday glued to your chair making you feel dull? Worry not. Get your 5-minute weekly dose of travel around the world with Postcards from Nowhere. Join me every Thursday as I explore the strange, obscure and fascinating parts of the world and bring out facets of travel you may not have thought of before. You can find us on the IVM Podcast app, website or wherever you get your podcast from.
If you love cricket, listen up. The Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast is here for you. Hosted by DJ, Varun, and me, Ashwin, we bring a fun, fresh fan's point of view to talking all things cricket. Sometimes it's just the three of us, sometimes we have guests, including current and former international cricketers. For new episodes every week, check out the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast on the IVM app, website, or wherever you get your podcasts.